What's up, guys? Welcome back to Spark to Fire. My name is Landon Rhodes. I'm your host, and today we have a guest that, honest to God, I never thought I would have on the show. Howard Behar is a renowned business leader, author, speaker, mentor. He's influenced the lives of numerous men and women at all stages of their careers. He's the ultimate servant leader. He's known for such memorable lessons as the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom, and only the truth sounds like the truth. He's the author of 2 incredible books, It's Not About the Coffee and The Magic Cup. And for 21 years, Howard led Starbucks as their president of North America, and he became the founding president of Starbucks International. During his tenure there, he participated in the growth of the company from only 28 stores regionally to over 15,000 stores spanning 5 continents. He served on the Starbucks board of directors for 12 years before retiring. Howard, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This is an honor.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, I want to be mindful of our time, so I'll get right into it. So I want to go back to ground zero with you for a little bit. Talk about your childhood. What was your upbringing like?
Well, I was raised in a home with the 2 parents that were immigrants that actually came to the United States in the early 1900s. My dad left Bulgaria and left his family behind as a 15-year-old and made his way to find his 20-year-older brother in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that was in 1911. And they both immigrated then to the United States and settled in Seattle.
Wow.
And my dad worked as pushing a cart in the Pike Place Market, which was an old produce market that's still alive today, more tourists than anything else now, but still selling produce. But in those days, it was a farmer's market. And so that's where he got his beginning, and he saved his pennies, nickels, and dimes and opened up a small mom-and-pop grocery store, and that's how we survived. And then he met my mother a number of years later, and who was also an immigrant from Latvia.
Wow. And,
they settled in Seattle. So I grew up having an appreciation for what it took to live your life, and that nothing was for sure, and that's the way it was, and we always had food on the table. The fruit might have been a little bit bruised, and the vegetables a little bit brown, but there was always food on the table.
Wow, that's awesome. So when did you know that you were going to be, when did your spark to fire moment happen? That moment where you knew things weren't going to be the same for you that it was for other people. Do you know that you were going to have a really extraordinary life just through your career and through the business and opportunities that you pursued and then achieved? Like when did that come true for you, or when did you realize that?
I didn't know. For the most part, up until my mid-20s, I was just being Howard, or what I thought was Howard. I didn't know who Howard was, but I was just being Happy Howie. They called me Howie, smile on my face. But when I hit my mid-20s, a man came into my life who was a mentor to me. He hired me at a company, and he was the one that really stretched me. He was the one that said, Howard, you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be. And here are some skill sets that you might want to learn to help you do that. And he taught me about affirmations, right? Because we all do affirmations, but he taught me about positive affirmations in terms of trying to influence how I thought about myself and how I thought about the world. He taught me how to set goals. He taught me how to write a mission statement, and he taught me how to set a plan. And he taught a lot of other things, but he moved me along. But I had, even before him, I'd had people that had helped me along the way. But I didn't know. A lot of people work hard. I worked hard, but I wasn't the only one. And sometimes you got to get lucky. And I always believe luck is where opportunity meets preparation. But the truth is, the opportunity has to come along, and then you have to recognize it, and you have to be willing to take the risk. And I was willing to take the risk. So I would say that I always believed that I could earn a living. I never felt that I would not be able to put food and a roof over my head for my family. I had good skills, and I had good sales skills, and I had good people skills
Yeah.
naturally. And I got in my late 20s, I got interested in servant leadership by, who the man that coined that term was a man named Robert Greenleaf. And so servant leadership became kind of a driving force within me. It put words to the things that I felt. And
Yeah.
so that really began to drive me. And I was an unconscious servant leader. I was doing it, but I didn't know why or how. And
Yeah.
and finally, as I developed my skill sets and knowledge about servant leadership, I became a conscious competent at it. And that's really served me well. I knew that by that time, that I had really strong leadership skills by the time I was in my 30s. That I could help a team, I could help people develop themselves and grow themselves and develop as professionals and as human beings. And I just used those skills all the way through. And, I had a couple of failures along the way, a couple of companies that didn't make it. And I was part of those companies, and I'd save money, and I'd invest in those companies. I lost all the money. Starbucks came along by accident. I'd been running a land development company in the Seattle area that was recreational land development, and it got in trouble, and we had to sell it. And I got out of it, and I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I was 43 years old.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't a kid. I really didn't have much money, and we sold our house because I was concerned we wouldn't be able to make the payments. And anyways, along comes Howard Schultz, who then was the modern day founder of Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I met him along the way, and we had a conversation, and he was looking for somebody to be a VP of operations of this little tiny coffee company called Starbucks. But at that time, I was trying to buy a small business. I was trying to go back to my family roots, small business. And so we had a meeting, and I fit nothing on his criteria for who he was looking for. He wanted somebody with a college degree. I didn't have that. He wanted somebody that had food service experience. I didn't have that. Finally, we got down to number 10. Can I breathe? Yes, I could breathe, but that was it. That was it. So we shook hands and said, "Nice to have met you." And a year later, I finally found a business to buy, and it was a franchise for a company called Hickory Farms, which I don't know if you remember. They sold salami and cheese,
Yes.
and they had these little stores.
100%.
And I could have bought the franchise for Oregon, Washington, British Columbia. I didn't know anything about franchising, and I didn't have any money, so the only person I knew that had money was my brother-in-law. So I went to him and I pitched him on the deal. He said, "Well, I know somebody who knows something about franchising." So we went to visit this guy that knew something about franchising, and lo and behold, he was kind of Howard Schultz's right arm. He had kind of semi-retired, but he had a lot of experience in franchising. And so we went to visit him. He was at the Starbucks office, and we went to visit him. And I was pitching my heart out, and he says to me, "What do you want to do something like that for? We need a guy like you right here at Starbucks." My brother-in-law sighed relief that he wouldn't have to loan me money if I got a job. You could have heard it from Seattle down to California. And I told him I'd already been through the deal with Howard a year ago. And he said, "No, thanks. We still haven't filled that job, and you'd be perfect for that job. I want you to talk to more people." So I said, "Before, we go any further, can I work in the company for a week? You look at me, I'll look at you. You don't pay me anything. I want to work on the trucks for a few days. I want to work in the stores for a few days, and I want to work in the roasting plant for a few days." And that's what I did. And by the end of that first week, I fell in love. And fortunately, Howard Schultz extended an invitation for me to join Starbucks. The rest is kind of history. I didn't know what it would become. I was just looking for a good place to land that fit me.
And
my values.
You mentioned that you didn't have any of the criteria that Howard was looking for in that VP of Ops. So you carry a good presence. You're a very professional person. You clearly care about people. But what did he see in you back then that he's just like, he doesn't fit the mold, but we have to have him? Like, what did he see?
I think that, I have strong people skills, so I came in with those skills on that week, right? And so here I'm packaging coffee in the roasting plant. Those are the days when nothing was automated. You'd stand on the floor, you'd put 5 pounds of coffee in a bag, put the Costco label on it, and put it in a box. And I did that for 2 days. I was exhausted, but I was working around people, and I were talking, and somebody said to me, "God, we don't have any tools." I said, so what kind of tools do you need? And he said, I need X, Y, and Z. So that night I went out and I bought the tools and I brought them back. I said, here, And so then I went out on the trucks and, I'm a little guy, but I was delivering the coffee like just the big guys were. And then I worked in the stores. I was waiting on customers. I didn't know. At those days, weren't hardly making any drinks. We were selling mostly retail stuff. So I was a good retail person. And I got behind the counter and I helped customers the best I could. And I think he saw that I cared and that people liked me, and I liked them. And my energy was there. And so I think that's what it did. And I saw the people at Starbucks. That's what made me want to go, is that I immediately thought that, hey, this is not about coffee here. This is about people, particularly in the stores, right? It was all about relationships, right? It's, we were selling expensive coffee. You had to build relationships with your customers because they were coming back once a week to buy a pound of coffee,
Yeah, it's a relationship, and I'm going to get into so much of that. And before we talk deeper into relationships, I want to talk about an interview I watched of you at the Drucker conference. You had sent them a little thing that you carry around in your pocket every single day, and I'm curious to see if you've got that near you today, or if if it's around you anywhere.
That's right. That's right here.
Oh, I love this so much.
Sits here. So I have it on my office wall. I have it in my briefcase. I have it on my iPad. I have it everywhere.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were in your mid-20s that you were still figuring out who you were. And right. I love this story so much because you talked about how you had natural abilities. You were really great with people. You had all of these things going for you. And then you met this executive that basically told you, you need to change to be an effective executive. You need to change and hold your cards closer to your chest. And you've clearly defied all of that logic that he was trying to put on you. So I'd love to hear you just share that story with us because that was excellent.
So he wasn't just an executive. He was the CEO and chairman of the board of a company called Grand Tree Furniture Rental. His name was Walker Treese. And I had just been promoted to vice president of the company. Now, I never in my wildest dreams thought a guy with a college degree would be able to be vice president of a public company. But here, and lo and behold, I was. And people were congratulating me. They're having parties and all sorts of things. And one day, just after the promotion, I was standing by the elevator getting ready to go to lunch, and Walker comes up to me, puts out his hand, said, Howard, I know I'm not the first to congratulate you, but I want to extend my congratulations to you on a well-deserved opportunity and promotion. And I said, thanks, Walker. And then he said that little three-letter word, but there's something I'd like to talk to you about. And, chairman of the board, Walker Treese, it's like, God is talking to me, And so I said, yes, Walker, what is it? And he said, well, one of the things I've noticed about you is you always wear your heart on your sleeve. Everybody knows what you're feeling all the time. If you want to be a great executive, you're going to have to learn to hold that closer to your vest, not show your cards all the time, And they said, the second thing I've noticed about you is when there's a conversation going or a question comes up, you're always willing to express your opinion. And great executives kind of really don't do that. They kind of hold their cards again close to the vest. They say something, let me think about it for a day or two to show that you're thoughtful, And as he's talking, I'm thinking, why the hell did they promote me? They knew who I was. I'm out there. I was out there with my opinions and I was out there with my emotions. And so now I said, I wanted to be a great executive. I just got promoted. And here's the chairman of the board telling me that what I did wasn't good. So he wasn't asking me to change the color of my slacks. He was asking me to change Howard. The unfortunate part is I didn't know who Howard really was. I never really thought about it. I was Howard being Howard. So, I came home that night and talked to my wife, and I said, I've got to change. What am I going to do? And so I remembered something my mother used to say to me all the time. Howard, before you say anything, sit on your hands. She didn't mean it literally, but it was the idea, think about what you're saying before you say anything, right? So I started going to meetings. I'd put my hands underneath my butt, and I'd sit there trying to remind myself not to say anything. I wanted to be a good executive. That kind of looked stupid, so then I said, okay, there's got to be a better way. I started taking boxes of paper clips to meeting, and I'd open up the box, I'd take a paper clip, I'd bend the paper clip till it broke, and then I'd start again, all in an attempt to keep my mind in the meeting but out of the meeting. And then finally I figured out there's another better way, and I took legal pads. There are 50 sheets of paper on a legal pad. That means there's On the bottom, there's 100 corners. I'd start ripping off the corners of the legal pads, making them into little balls. It was a nervous little habit, making little balls thrown underneath the table. That looked kind of stupid, this little pile of balls on the table. So after about 3 months' time, I went from a guy that loved his job to a guy that hated his job. Ruined the day I took the promotion because I didn't think I was ever going to be a great leader. And so I decided to resign. And the morning of the resignation, I won't go into the whole story, but I walked into the building and one of my co-vice presidents was there. And he said, "Hey, Howard, you got time for a cup of coffee?" I had time for anything because I was resigning that day.
The irony.
So, we sat down, had a cup of coffee, and he looked at me and says, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "The guy that we all supported to be the next vice president, you're not that guy anymore. The guy that we could all depend upon to speak his piece and to show his emotion behind, you're not that guy. Some of us are starting to think you're all in it for yourself now." And I had never shared with anybody that conversation with Walker except for my wife. Yeah. And because I was embarrassed. I was young, and I thought I should have known what it took to be a good executive. And so I related the story, and he started to laugh. He said, "Oh, Walker didn't mean that." I said, "Baloney, I was there. You weren't." He meant every word he said. Yeah. And he said, "We're going to go talk to Walker when he comes in." So he grabbed me by my proverbial ear. We went to talk to Walker, and the truth is, Walker meant everything that he said. But we made peace, and with Walker, and it was just kind of who Walker was. He wasn't a bad human being. He was the guy that, management by walking around meant you walked to his office. He didn't walk to your office. Mm-hmm. He was 57 years old. This is in the 1970s. He was kind of an autocratic style leader. So anyway, I decided I was never going to go through that again. So I went on my journey to figure out who Howard was. And that's when I read this book, and the book said, identify your top 8 to 10 core values, identify a mission statement, and then write a paragraph about how you want to live your life. And so that's what this is. This is a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. And I've carried this around me for 50 years.
I love that so much. And I have it printed off here too, and I can read it really quick just to give you guys an idea. I think you've probably already heard a little bit about Howard just from us talking, but I want to read this because it is very fast, and I think that's a point to make too, is that it is very quick and easy and simple to read. Howard's mission: to live my life every day nurturing and inspiring the human spirit of myself and others. I would love to hear what that means after we get through this. Howard's core values: honesty, fairness, respect for self and others, responsibility, trust in self and others, caring, and love. How I do everything, meaning Howard, with purpose, with passion, with persistence, with patience, with performance for people.
There it is, my 6 Ps.
I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. It's pretty, and in your book, it's not about the coffee. You developed that with Jim Collins, right?
Yeah, I plagiarized it from Starbucks.
From Starbucks, yeah. It was from Starbucks, though. Yeah.
I had other mission statements before that, but when we did this work with Jim Collins to create what he calls a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? This became our big, hairy, audacious goal. It has more to it. We want to be one of the most well-known and respected organizations in the world, known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. When I heard those words, known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit, I said, that's me. See, it said nothing about how big we wanted to be, how many cups of coffee we wanted to sell, how much money we wanted to make. Known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit, not a word about coffee. And I said, that's me. That's who I am. I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit of others, but I recognize that if I didn't do it for myself first, I couldn't do it for others. And so that drives me. That's how I live my life every day. I mean, it's what I do. And it's my greater purpose in life. And that's what I do.
And when you say nurturing the human spirit, what does that actually mean to you on like a day-to-day level? You see somebody in a store, you're interacting with somebody in a meeting. What does that mean to you? And like, how do you apply that every day?
Listening. Number one. Yeah. Treat them with respect and dignity, no matter who they are, no matter whether they're 5 years old or they're 80 years old. Yeah. No matter whether they're black, white, green, yellow, or blue. Doesn't make any difference. And everybody gets the same treatment. And I give of myself. If somebody wants something or needs something or wants to talk to me, they're going to always get a conversation. And so I try to help them be all they can be. As a leader, my job was to help people grow first as human beings. Secondly, as professionals. They go together, but most important thing was to help them be better human beings.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to do.
That's good. And when in the book, you also talk about the green apron pamphlet. And I want you to just talk to our listeners a little bit about the difference between the Starbucks green apron pamphlet and the normal handbook, because I think there's a very stark difference in how most people view a handbook versus what you put together for Starbucks or what you guys all built together for Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, this was a little booklet that a woman named, I won't go the whole story, but a woman named Jennifer Karaman, who worked for the company, and I was at that time president of North America. I'd come back out of retirement to be president of North America. And she had this idea that she wanted to do this little booklet that would talk about all our values. And that's what it was. It was a book of values. It said, here's who we are, here's how we act, here's what we value. And she called it the Little Green Apron Book because we wear green aprons. And that went to everybody got one of those. And that drove us for a long period of time. I don't know if they even still use it anymore, but it was an important little document because it didn't say, don't do this. It didn't say you can't do this. It basically said, be a human being first. Be who you are first. Treat others with respect and dignity. Understand that being of service to others is a noble cause. It's a bunch of things. I don't remember all the words, and I wish I had one here. I had one up in Seattle, but I don't have one here, so I'd show it to you. But anyway, it was a driving force inside of Starbucks.
And you talked about just being human. You saw a sign in the bathroom. I want you to go into this. You walked into a...
Man, you've done your homework.
I have. Yep, I researched for a while. Thank you. And so you walk into one of the Starbucks locations, and I know you remember the exact phrasing, so I'm going to let you say it. And I want you to explain, again, that difference of what that sign said and just being human. I'd love for you to just dig into that for our listeners.
Well, many fast food joints or retailers, they always want to have slogans, right? And they had, I had come out of retirement, and I was back into running retail operations, so naturally I was in the stores again. So I walked in the back room of one of the stores, and here was this poster, about 2 by 3, and it said, be nice, be fast, be clean. And I just ripped that thing off of the wall. I said, how about a sign that says, be human? Be nice, be fast, be clean. Really? You got to tell people that? You don't need to do that. It's demeaning. It was demeaning. And so I didn't like it. I said, be human. Do we have to have clean stores? Yeah. Do we need to serve people, fairly quickly? And should we be good human beings, nice? But not, that was, I thought it was demeaning to human beings to say that. So I said, how about just being human? Be who you are is good enough for us.
That's a unique take. That's a hot take because I don't think a lot of companies think that way. And it's important to hear it from someone who's been at the level of success that you guys have reached. And I think that's very fascinating. I've heard the phrase treat people like they're children, they'll act like children, treat them like adults, they'll act like adults. Do you pretty big believer in that?
I absolutely. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I think you treat children with the same respect you treat adults, So I think you treat human beings alike. You listen, right? You tell the truth, right? You trust, you love, you care.
You've been known for carrying around a giant bag of handwritten letters. I want to hear about the impact that handwritten letters have had on your career.
Yeah, well, it wasn't letters; it was birthday and anniversary cards.
They're cards, cards. I should say.
Cards. I would send it up until we had about 10,000 people. I sent everybody a company anniversary card for their years of service and a birthday card, and I would write a note in each one of them. Now, I didn't know everybody, but the ones I did know, I would write something more personal. But the ones that I didn't know, I would always say, "Happy birthday! I'm glad you're here." And it was always handwritten. And every year I would have new cards printed up, but it was always coffee related. And I had an artist that did great cards, and everybody would get one of those cards. And I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we're never going to get too big to treat people as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take these, I would go on an airplane and I'd take 500 or 1,000 cards, right, right in these boxes. And then I had these bags, FedEx bags, and I'd do the signing, I'd put them in the envelopes, and I'd put this little sticker on that my assistant had given me for the date that they needed to go out, and I'd put them in the bag. And when I got off the airplane, I'd find the local FedEx at the airport, and I'd give them the deal.
Stop
And
it.
I did that forever. Or I'd be at home watching a football game, and I would do cards. It took a lot of time, but I always found the time to do it. You know what's so amazing? I haven't sent a card. I've been gone from Starbucks for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. There are still people that talk to me about those, still have those cards.
Yeah. You said
right?
They put them on their refrigerator and stuff too.
Yeah,
as a
they
reminder.
still have those cards. You know how many people never get a birthday card from anybody, not even in their family?
Yeah.
Never have somebody say happy birthday, a simple thing, happy birthday. You're important as a human being.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And, it was a little thing, but, I made a commitment to do it.
Yeah. What I love about you, from hearing what other people have said about you and reading your book and now talking to you in person, is you have what I think a lot of people desire in life, and that's to be congruent. You genuinely do show up exactly. You show up with one hat, and I want to talk a little bit about what that means to you. There's a friend of mine actually recommended the book, The Six Thinking Hats. Two friends have recommended it to me now, and you talk a little bit about that, and then you talk about how you had your six thinking hats, and then you had Howard's one hat. I want you to tell that story if you could.
Well, you live your life, putting on different hats for every person you meet. Mm-hmm. So, if you're married, you wake up in the morning, you look across the bed, your spouse is there, a significant other. You think, I better put on my spouse hat. If that happens, you better really be thinking about whether you're in the right relationship. If you go to work and you say, I better put on my Starbucks hat, you better be thinking about whether you're in the right place to work. And if you're always having to change your hat, you're never being you. Mm-hmm. And so my advice and how I try to live my life is I wear Howard's hat. And Howard's hat is a reflection of this, of my values, about my 6 Ps and my mission statement. And I show up that way wherever I go. Yeah. It's a Walker telling me to be somebody different. I rejected it. I said, I am who I am. Am I an emotional guy? Yes. I try to, be better at that, because I could get carried away with emotion, great strength, great weakness. Yep. And a hat of saying what I believe, telling my truth, whatever that is, I try to do that. And so it's being you. And it's not the hats that we wear, that the roles we play, mother, father, teacher, sister, brother. That's not the kind of hat that I'm talking about. My wife will always say to me, well, yeah, you wear one hat, I got to wear 30 to keep this house running. Yeah. I'm not talking about those kind of hats. I'm talking about the hat that informs who you are as a human being. You got to do the work to figure out that, though. It's not just readily apparent. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out what your values are, what your core values are. And that takes some work, And anybody can do it. They can go on the internet and you'll find lists of human values. Yep. Greed, love, ambition, whatever it happens to be. And you got to get it down to at least 50 and then get it down to 10. These are the core ones. These are the ones, come hell or high water, these are how you live your life. And that's what I try to do. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say wear one hat.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talks about how you don't get what you want, you get what your standard is. And I think about core values as your standards.
Yeah, exactly.
You're stressed after a long day of work, you had one of the worst days ever. How are you going to show up at home? How are you going to show up, the next day at work?
It's okay to show at home stressed and say, honey, you can't believe my day today. I am so stressed. Mm-hmm. Can I get 5 minutes to just take a breath from the kids? Yeah. And you tell your kids that too. Yep. You say, I want to be here, and I had a terrible day. Yeah. Right? And you're angry, you're stressed, whatever it is. Tell them. Communicate it. Communicate the truth. Be honest and open with them, and show yourself. Be authentic and vulnerable.
Yeah.
At home, work, wherever it is. You can do the same thing at work. You should.
Yeah.
If you had a blowout argument with your wife at home just before you left for work, and you come in, you don't have to say I had a blowout argument with my wife. You can say I didn't have a good morning today. Give me 5 minutes to settle down.
People love that just because, you think about it, if that person walked in, or they walk into your office and you had the bad day, or you walk into their office and they had the bad day, just being able to be transparent with one another and say, I respect you. I want to show up for you. I want to be very present with you, but I'm dealing with something and I need 5 minutes to just not right now.
Everybody, that old adage, leave your personal problems at home. Nobody leaves their personal problems at home. Nobody.
No.
Right? And whenever you say that, you're demeaning to a human being. Instead, you should say, I can see, if you see somebody struggling, say, it looks like you could use some time, or anything I can do to help you this morning.
Yeah.
That's good. Anything.
That's super good. So speaking of that, I just ran my eyes across one of the questions in front of me here. And you talk about listening for truth. So you can feel that. It's nonverbals. People, it's a pretty obvious tell when somebody's like not having a great day if you understand people.
Yeah.
So how do you decipher between, when you're listening for truth, how do you decipher between somebody's having a bad day and somebody is maybe considering leaving, or they're considering changing careers, or they're just like fed up? Like, how do you decipher that as an executive? I'm sure you saw thousands and thousands of people come, go, change positions. What did you do to just like kind of see through a bad day to understand what was really going on in their lives?
Well, number one, you got to use those little antennae that you have. You don't see them, but they're there. Mm-hmm. And those antennae tune you into other human beings. And the way you want to test this, I don't know if you're married or if you have a significant other.
I have a fiance. Yep, she'll be
listening. You got a fiance. Okay,
Yeah.
All right. So you come home, right? You don't need to ask her. You can tell how she's feeling, right?
Yep.
You can sense it.
You're right.
Right? You can sense it, and she can sense it in you if you're tuned in. And I used to tell our baristas, look, you got 10 seconds to determine where that person is in front of you. You're really a social worker. And whether they got a traffic ticket that's $200 and they just used up their food money for a month, or their kid just got a full ride to Harvard and they can't wait to tell somebody, you just got to sense things. And if I always said, ask if you don't know, right? So you're talking about the person that you work with. You call them employee, we call them partners at Starbucks. You got to ask. If you sense something, ask. Now, I had extrasensory antenna. I sometimes sense things that weren't there, but I always asked, because it's better to know that it's not there than to not know. And sometimes people aren't willing to share, and sometimes you have to encourage that. Sometimes you have to say, it's okay. I used to tell everybody, look, you can say anything you want to me. I mean, I don't care what it is. Even if it hurts my feelings, I'll deal with it. Okay? I'll be okay. But you don't have to hold back with me. Whatever it is that's on your mind, say it to me. And I will never burn you. I promise you. And I never did.
Yeah.
If somebody said something to me in confidence, it was in confidence. Now, if it was, I heard other people say that we were having some kind of problem that I didn't know about or understand. I'd talk to other people about it too. And I would never say, this person told me. I would just try to look for more people that felt the same way. And then I say, okay, we got to fix this. Yeah.
Yeah. So just asking regardless. I think that's excellent advice. If because as a leader, you do develop that. You develop these antennas. You have this understanding subconsciously of, you can read the room, you can read the culture to see how people are doing. How did you talked a little bit in your book about at times when Starbucks wasn't as great, and there was times where you were going through a little bit of a valley. And you mentioned that you were like looking at increasing, I think it was payroll, and just increasing wages, wages for all of your team members, your partners. And so when you guys went through that, I was just curious, like how did that go when you made the decision to, ultimately you ended up increasing wages for a lot of different people in the company. How did that all go, and how did culture play into profitability there?
Well, it was when I was early in Starbucks and we were paying pretty much minimum wage. And I said, this isn't going to work paying minimum wage. And so I said, I want to be at least $1 an hour over minimum wage to begin with. And so we did all the numbers, and I thought it was going to cost 1% of sales. It ended up costing 2% of sales. So we get the P&Ls out, and I'm on vacation, and Schultz calls me and says, what happened? Kind of wasn't that nice. It was more like, what the fuck? What happened? So I said, I don't know, but I'll find out. I rushed back from vacation, and we'd made a mistake. We had misrepresented a number on a spreadsheet. And so I had to figure out how to fix it. Well, we weren't going back. And so I figured out how to fix it. We had to raise prices. We had to cut some other expenses, but we were able to do it. And it was the right thing to do. It's gotten harder today as minimum wage has gone up, because, labor is a third, direct labor is about a third, including benefits, of all the costs of doing business at Starbucks. So when that labor moves up, there's no choice that you're going to raise prices. You're not going to absorb it anywhere else.
Yeah, you have to.
So the customer has to pay for it. We gave everybody health care benefits out. Cost money, that was in the price too. And so we just tried to, culture was everything at Starbucks. As Warren Buffett says, culture beats strategy every day. And it's the truth. And culture is living, breathing thing. Culture is a direct reflection of the values of the leadership of the organization and how those values turn into actions and decisions. People don't care what you say, they care what you do. And so what you do needs to match the values of your organization, and so that mattered. And when it didn't mean we didn't make mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes, but we had mechanisms in place to identify when we were getting off track, and we always tried to do the right thing. It's not easy in today's world, because no matter what you do, everybody always wants more, right?
Yeah. And you're going to make somebody mad regardless.
And you're going to, there's 500,000 people that work for Starbucks. You're going to make somebody mad. Somebody's going to say it's not enough. You give me health care benefits. You gave health care benefits to same-sex partner. You pay for me to go to college. You give me a pound of coffee a week for free. You give me free coffee and whatever in the stores. You treat me with respect and dignity. You do all those things, but I want more. And that's the way life is, and you got to figure out how to deal with it. And Starbucks is going through that right now, going through that right now, and a lot of companies are. But all right, you deal with it, and you try to do the best that you can. You're never going to be perfect, and I always say that greed comes in all shapes and sizes, from $1 to $1 billion. It's poor people can be as greedy as rich people.
That's true.
It's true. Yep. It's true. People think it's all relative. Yeah. And So anyway, culture mattered at Starbucks. It was who we were. We had to be who we are.
Yeah, I love that. You talk about how Starbucks is not in the coffee business serving people. Starbucks is in the people business serving coffee. And we talked a lot about people today. It's been the primary point of the conversation.
Well, that's all there is, isn't it?
That's all there is. And
there's nothing else. It's just coffee.
It's just coffee.
It's just a microphone. It's just earphones. What is it? What do these things do? They serve people.
Serve people.
Coffee serves people. So the only role that any of us ever will have on this earth, there's only one role. I don't care what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a barista, architect, whether you're a ditch digger, whether you're a widget maker, making widgets that go into a printing press that get sold to a publishing company, that the publishing company produces a magazine or a newspaper that gets delivered to somebody's home to inform or entertain them. The widget maker is serving people. And we don't recognize that. We get bored, or we think we're bored. People don't get bored, or burnt out. People lose track of why they're there.
Yeah.
They forget that they're there to serve people. Do we get tired? Yes.
Yeah.
Do we get tired? Yes. But you'll never get bored doing your work if you remember you're there to serve other human beings. You may want to do it in a different way someplace else. Maybe you'll say, I'm a widget maker. I'd like to make engines now. I don't want to just make
Right.
Right, but that's different. You're
Those
still
people never
serving
leave out of
people.
malice, though. Those people never leave
Yeah,
out of malice.
yeah,
It's always a happy transition. So,
yeah.
what did you do to inspire that culture of alignment when you were there? Because if it would get out of line, you would know it from a P&L standpoint. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's like a living, breathing organism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As it got bigger, it was hard to identify in individual stores, but you could, and I could always, I didn't, how many stores could I get to in a year, but you could walk into a store. I could walk in a store and feel whether it was right or wrong, right? And we had mechanisms to do it, but if your people are not happy, the people working the place, customers will not be happy. There's a direct correlation. You serve your people so that they can serve those other human beings we call customers. And you had to keep your focus on it. I was relentless about that. Look, at the people were my day job, the business was my night job. And all I thought about is how can we serve our people better? How can we treat them with more respect and dignity? And we made mistakes along the way and screwed things up, and we paid prices for it. We broke trust, and we had to regain trust on things. But at the end of the day, it's what really mattered at Starbucks. It was hard to get fired for messing your numbers. It was easy to get fired for messing with the people.
It's good. I so believe in that, because the intentionality behind what a person's doing, even if it's not, they're 90% on target instead of 100% on target. Obviously, you have to evaluate that over a long period of time. But as a snapshot, if they're fully in alignment with the culture, but then these numbers are just a little bit off, that's probably like an easy 1% tweak to make to get that changing.
Yeah, yeah.
What's been your biggest way to stay, I don't want to ask how to stay productive, but you have absolutely mastered becoming an efficient person in productivity, because you have to. Like, there's no way to do what you did without being very effective and productive. Yeah. So what systems or frameworks did you use to be an effective executive?
It was not complex. It was, I listened to people, right? And I took what they said seriously. Right? And it wasn't that I was looking for anarchy. I wasn't. But, when you talk to enough people, there starts to be threads of sameness. And you put those threads. I wasn't the most creative guy in the world, but what I was an alchemist. I would take disparate ideas from different people, put them together, and realize, hey, this is a direction we might want to go. And then I would check back. What do you think about this with the disparate ideas? And I used to have on my office wall, this is before computers, but I probably still do it today because it's not my deal. Okay, so I'd have a 20-foot wall, and it was divided into 3 sections. The first section was white 3x5 cards. These were everything we were working on. We'd made a decision to work on. The second section were pink cards, everything that we were thinking about working on. And the third section were orange 3x5 cards. Any idea that anyone wanted to put on the wall, they could walk into my office, take one of those pins, stick that 3x5 card on the wall, and it was going to get into the discussion realm. And so about once every week or 2 weeks, we'd get together as a team. We'd look at all the new orange cards. And we'd say, anything here we want to transfer on. And it's kind of how I managed the business.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how many things got done that never got to the white priority that needed to get done. Something in a software, thing that needed to be changed, or something in whatever it was, and they would just get done. And come in and somebody said, that thing, I got it done. We took it off the wall.
I love
it. Was in the orange segment. The big stuff always had to get to the white, where we were going to use big company resources. But I'm not a complicated person. I'm not. And I believed in strategic planning. I believe in having a plan. I have a plan for my life, and I believe in living my life with intent, and I believed in operating a business with intention. And first, who are you? Second, what are you trying to do?
It's good. It's good. On the what are you trying to do side, what's your annual framework for goal setting?
Oh, well, Lynn and I, we've done it together. My wife and I have done it together since we've been married. Okay.
I've heard from several people that's a really good idea, and Megan and I are going to be doing that as well.
I'm telling you, it will change your life. I promise you. I'd give you a written guarantee it will change your marriage. So we would go away for a weekend.
Yeah.
Get nice bottles of wine. We'd take, those big charts that have the sticky on the back.
Yeah.
And we'd write up the headings: spirituality, material, economic, career, which now Lynn and I call our life's work because we're not managing careers anymore.
Yep.
Children. We have grandchildren now. Economics, travel, personal growth, health, right? And we would go and we'd write those headings up on. We each have a set of those papers, and we'd get 2 rooms and we'd put them up on the wall, and we would write 3 to 5 goals under each one of those. We had one for marriage too. 3 to 5 goals for each of these things. So she would have her career goals. Her career goals, she wanted to get when we first started doing it, she wanted to get a college degree. She didn't have a college degree when we got married. So that went up there. We figured out how she was going to do that, right? Because I was going to be the sole. And she wanted to get a master's degree. First 11 years of our marriage, she was in college. I thought, where's her father in all this? But we figured out how to do it because we talked about it. And my career, I wanted to lead an organization. And what was it going to take? And I had to work extra. I had to do things other people weren't willing to do. I had to be willing to pick up the cigarette butts, And so we talked, I would be traveling a lot, particularly at Starbucks. We negotiated those issues in the planning session. Marriage. What did we want from our marriage? We wanted to love we wanted to remember why we got married in the first place, because so often people forget. We wanted to honor our marriage with kindness, with caring, with love, and always express it. And we created what is it called? I forget what, but a statement of purpose for our marriage.
Yeah.
That was one of our goals. And we had on there, what was our statement of purpose? How we wanted to live our marriage.
So good.
Right? We still have it to this day. And so we do that planning. And then, we had economic goals. I wanted to make X money by X years. I wanted to be able to retire by whatever. And those goals would get there. And it was amazing how they went into your subconscious. And you didn't have to look at them all the time. They would kind of just take over and you'd move towards them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting point. Just the subconscious nature of setting intent in your life.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. And I'm glad that you shared that for all the business owners and just, executives that listen to this, that it's not just you, because it doesn't just affect you. It affects your wife. It affects your kids.
Yeah.
We
used to do planning with our kids when they got older, but primarily it was Lynn and I. Yeah, we used to, a lot of people do this, family meetings, where they sit down and they talk about their issues.
Yep.
What's bothering them, and so it opens lines of communication. And it's a great time for listening to each other. Anyway, and that's what this planning was about. We just about a month ago, we reviewed our 5-year plan.
That's wonderful.
And I'm 77. Starting to do a 5-year plan at 77, starting to get optimistic,
No, come on. No, that's good.
Hey, you never know. I'm past the average already. So, you don't know. I plan on living a long life, and I'm going to have a plan that maybe I'll be doing my plan. There'll be a time when I don't complete the plan.
You know what? That's the whole point, is keep having the plan until you don't.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
wonderful. Well, you've done such an amazing job at just sharing your wealth of knowledge, and not just today, but just in general. I've looked, as I've been researching you're well documented, which is a great thing, because when people need to know what it takes to grow great organizations. And I think so many people, they get this idea of their head of like this sort of executive they have to be, or they have to be this type of owner. And usually it involves a lot around, rigidity and just routines, but it doesn't revolve around people. And I've definitely fallen prey to that as well. So it's just great to hear from people like you of what's possible when you just take care of people, man.
Anything's possible. Don't define your life by success. Define your life by your values and who you are. Money comes or money doesn't come. I've had money, not had money. I was the same person when I didn't have money, right? Just, as long as you can put food on the table, and not all people can. It's hard. for some. And so I understand that. And our job is to help those people as best we can. But, define your life by your values and who you are as a human being and how you treat other people. That's success.
That's good. God, you've had so many mic drop moments today, Howard. You just had so many of them. It's been great. So I have a few questions before we wrap up here. Okay. So before I do, I just want to remind our listeners to just leave a written review, guys. Go to iTunes, find us on iTunes, and leave a 5-star rating and a written review, because that is how we get amazing people like my friend Howard on the show, because we have to get moved up in the algorithm, and then we can just keep sharing this awesome wisdom with you. So I just wanted to give a quick plug for that. And real quick for you, Howard, before we kind of round out the episode, where can people find you if they want you to come speak, or what's the best place to find you?
I always like to give my email address and my phone number. So here's my cell phone number. It's 206-972-7776. And my email address is hb@howardbehar.com. I will respond to anybody that contacts me. I'm a little slow, but I promise you I will always get back to you.
Yeah, and I am a living, breathing testament of that. And you are not that slow. You are actually very fast comparatively. So my last few questions here. If you spoke to your 21-year-old self today, what advice would you give that young man?
Identify who you are as a human being and write it down. Write down your core values. Create a mission statement for yourself and have a plan. Where are you going? Remember, none of this is written in stone. Everything can be changed. Write it in pencil. You can erase it. You can change anytime you want. But have a plan. At least have a plan for the next a month or 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Live your life with intention. If you like to be a person that every Saturday you want to skateboard, that's your plan.
So you are.
Right? I don't care. Doesn't make any difference what it is. Just have a plan. What are your goals and what you're trying to accomplish?
That's good.
Yeah.
If you could recommend 3 books to an entrepreneur or somebody that just wants to just live a more fulfilled life as well, what would those 3 books be?
One about teamwork called The Boys in the Boat.
The Boys in the Boat.
Boys in the Boat. It's a story about a University of Washington crew that wins the Olympics in 1936 and how it happened. It's about teamwork, individuals and teamwork. So The Boys in the Boat. The second book would be Peter Drucker's The Effective Drucker or something like that.
Yeah, the effective executive.
Executive, yeah, by Peter Drucker.
Yep.
I mean, it's an older book, but it's still as relevant today as it's always been. Peter Drucker was a consummate person in servant leadership. He was a contemporary of Robert Greenleaf, and he talks about the same kind of thing. So The Effective Executive, I think, by Peter Drucker. And then the third book, let's see, what would I give you? I'm a servant leadership buff, so I would read a book by James Autry called The Servant Leader. And he talks about servant leadership. There's a lot of good books. Look, there's tons of good books. Just identify the subject you want to read, and then read 5 books about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go
from
deep
different
on
people.
That.
Get different points of view. So I'd like to leave you with something today. If you have 1 minute,
I want to
get it out of my brief.
Yes,
I want to get it
amazing.
out of my briefcase. One second.
You're great. Go ahead.
So it's a quote from a movie, and I'll tell you what the movie was at the end of the quote.
Okay.
For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or you can stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best of it or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you've never felt before. And I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And if you find that you're not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. It's so important to remember that. Whether you're 16 or you're 82, it's never too late. It's never too late.
Wow.
And this came from The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons.
Oh.
And it was such a wonderful quote. I just loved it. That's just a reminder, it's never too late. Whatever you want to do in life, you can do. You can be who you want to be.
Man. Well, it's going to be tough to end the show with anything better than that, Howard. Thank you so much for your intentionality and for carving some time out for this today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Spark to Fire. I know this was a huge note-taking episode. I'm going to go listen to this like 40 times in a row. Make sure you check out those books and check out more content from Howard. He's a wealth of knowledge, as you guys have heard in this short episode. And just thank you guys for listening. I appreciate every single one of you listening to this show, and keep striking.